Hello, viewers. The DHEECast team is back with another episode of Mind Matters. I'm your host, Shormishta. Today, we are having a session with our three experts who are joining from different parts of the country. Your huge support and feedback on the first episode of Mind Matters, which was streamed in August, has immensely motivated us to come back with another round of discussion with another great panel today, and we will hear their experiences and perspective. Today we have with us Mr. Shubhodip Bhattacharya, a seasoned corporate professional with nearly 3 decades of experience handling and managing senior portfolios in India and SAARC countries. He is currently associated with Sony Pictures Networks as the Vice President. Mr. Bhattacharya is joining us from Mumbai today. We also have Professor Amrit Sen, a veteran academician, professor of the Department of English from the Vishwabharati University. Professor Sen, a very popular personality with nearly 2 decades of teaching experience and many publications to his credit, is joining us from Kolkata. I'm happy to introduce you all with an award-winning documentary filmmaker, Ms. Shubhasri Krishnan, who is joining us from the National Capital, Delhi. Shubhasri also leads the Media Lab at the Indian Institute of Human Settlement that works around urban issues. I once again welcome all the panelists to our today's session. Viewers, anxiety, fear, stress, worry are normal reactions to perceived threats, and particularly when we are faced with uncertainties and unknown. We do not know how to react, which definitely takes a toll on our mental health. Therefore, it is quite normal and understandable that people are experiencing fear in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. Added to the fear, the virus has also brought in significant changes to our daily lives. As our movements are restricted, we cannot go, we cannot greet, we cannot meet people. There is temporary unemployment, we are working from home, homeschooling of children, lack of physical contact with family members as well, with no social life at all. Therefore, minding the mind was probably never that important before, like it is today. If I talk about myself, work from home was something like a very fancy thing, a flexibility I could enjoy if there is an emergency or a requirement at home. But at this moment, it has become mandatory. Then I really see like for an uncertain period, I cannot go to office, I cannot meet my own people, my team. It actually started at a point in time, it started choking my energy and enthusiasm. The first casualty was the work-life balance. Further, with no places to go, the concept of weekend had a premature death. You cannot meet anyone. All thanks to advanced technology, at least we can see people whenever we want. But was it all bad? Or this new lifestyle has opened various other opportunities for me? Well, this session is not about my stories. I have my own stories, but then I'm here to facilitate a conversation between you and our esteemed panelists. So I would like to start with Mr. Bhattacharya. Since you come from a fast-paced industry, there are a lot of demand on a regular basis that we need to address, need to meet. So if you just tell me or tell our viewers and us that when this pandemic panic was there, the sudden lockdown was declared, and you had to suddenly shift your all focus, like from an offline mode to you had to bring your whole office at home and you started working online. Was it relaxing for you? Was it comfortable for you or stressful? What were the mechanisms that you adopted to cope up with that situation that period of time?
Thanks, Shormishta. I think you summed it up here. I think there are three C's which when I think of those first 2-3 months of the lockdown, it is utter chaos, big time confusion, and crisis. See, for the first time, we never have heard in our lives, we have never seen lockdowns apart from those burnt days in Calcutta. Okay, that was more of a holiday than a lockdown. Then we have never heard this disease called this COVID. We never had any idea what it is, how long will it go. One fine day on the 3rd week of March, we were said that be back home. And then now all the report cards are coming, how the industry how it suffered here. I mean, it is unthinkable. The GDP was down by 23.9% during those first 2-3 months, first quarter. Nearly 1.9 crore people lost their jobs. Uh, the unemployment grew from a mere 6.4% pre-COVID to a 26% during this first quarter. If you talk about our industry, all the live, we depend on live programming, be it live shootings, be it live sports, everything got standstill. Okay, so a lot of our money comes from the ad industry, which depends on the other sectors also. So if I have to quantify, nearly 5 to 6,000 crores per month is the ad revenue for all broadcasters put together. So in the first 3 months, instead of 15 to 18,000 crores of ad revenue, we ended up as a whole nothing more than 2 to 2.5 thousand crores of ad revenue. Because overall Indian Inc. was losing 36,000 crores per day during those lockdown period. So you can very well imagine what we were going through. So we had a business plan. Every year we start with a business plan for the next fiscal. We had a plan in place, but everything went disarray. So obviously it started, and we never have done work from home in our lives here. I mean, some of my colleagues have done some work from home, but people like us, office was everything or else traveling. We can't even know we never knew what is work from home. Home for us is either a weekend or you're on leave. Okay, so from there we came down to this phase where we are back home. We are seeing our family for so many days. I have never seen them for so many days. They never knew what to do with me, and neither I knew what to do with them. We bumped into each other, and there was this online things happening, my sessions and my kids sessions, and all put together, even the basic stuff like whether we have the proper rice and dal back home to ensure that we have the basic necessities made. So as I said, that this was unthinkable. I mean, I have seen recessions 10, 12 years back, where the entire world got affected. But number one, this was nowhere near to what we are experiencing here. And number two, at that point of time, anybody who underwent recession at least could reach out to their friends, rightly what you are saying, could reach out to their friends or could go out with their families or could go down. And here we are. The only place we can go is from the drawing room and come to the bedroom or go to the balcony, stare at those empty Mumbai streets. I stay in a very, very well populated place, hardly any cars in the entire day, and which makes you think. Even the strongest of person was thinking at that point of time, what is happening and where it will go. When 46% of the families actually had an income which is less than what they had last year. Yeah, it really had started taking toll on all of us and made us think that, because so much uncertainty, that what is the next step and where it is leading to.
So is there anything that you adopted to cope up, as in like personally to cope up with this whole thing, other than what's happening that's creating a lot of worries and tension, looking at, many other things happening around, including job losses in different industries. So is there any strategy that you adopted to cool down your mind? Because I understand you are in a senior position, so you have to, whatever happens, you have to, be calm and, work like normal. Business should look as you did.
Right. So I think first thing what we did as a personal, from the personal perspective, you have to get in terms with this fact. At any given point of time, we have faced a lot of crises. I mean, this is not the first crisis we are facing, any one of us. But yeah, it's a different kind. So, like for me, getting into an exercise or doing some sort of physical activity every day was extremely critical. And give a small example. Now my gyms everything was closed. Even I could not go down for a walk. So what we started doing, we started getting into those online pieces. For example, those Tabata workings of this world, I never knew this. So I started getting into those pieces. And obviously within the house itself, I did those small things which will make me happy within myself also, and will make me happy with my family. I started watching movies together. We started playing those small things like a game of Ludo or a game of cards maybe. So that is something which kept me and them also busy and happy, because this is it can have a rub-off effect. If I am demoralized as a head of the family, as a person in the family, then my family can also get affected. Same goes for my team also. So very soon we started gathering our thoughts that this is a reality, and started making very practical goals in front of us, because if we do not have a practical goal based on the current situation, we will keep on chasing something which is not achievable, and which will give somebody a more depressing thoughts, and he will get down into those places that, oh, tomorrow it might be my day because I can't meet my numbers, I can't deliver. So we all got into those practical aspects and got into those goals and settings, and then we started revisiting our entire tasking and started going forward as per that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I would now would like to ask Professor Shen, because your domain is completely different. Again, this our education system, at least particularly in India, we are totally dependent on the classroom setting arrangements, right? You as a student probably have never attended any online classes. I'm just assuming though. Now then you are the one who has to facilitate classes, sessions. It's not only for one day, it's not only one session in a day, probably sessions after sessions every day. So as a professor, as a teacher, and you are a fabulous professor who has been respected, regarded by all your students and colleagues. So, were you at any point in time worried that there are technologies attached to it? There are how would you manage those? What is there is one communication is face-to-face communication, but then here you cannot see your students whether they are receiving your messages correctly, your lessons correctly or not. You do not know. So, how stressful was that for you in the beginning, or even maybe even now? What is? I mean, we would like to hear it from you.
I think Amrit, you're on mute.
I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Shormishta. As Shubhadeep pointed out, there are three dimensions to this entire crisis. One is at a personal family level, where, as Shubhadeep pointed out, Ludo has made a big time return, and in a certain way, it's helped us also to bond because we've spent a lot of time with each other. Secondly, you see, what we initially did was that the lockdown came almost at the close of a semester. So there was a lot of teaching to be completed. So what we all tried to do in various ways, and I'm sure I'm talking for educators all across the country, is we tried different things. Now, as you know, the digital divide is a very deep divide in India. So we had to depend on low technology. Now, what we did was initially try things like WhatsApp, Gmail, emails, then try various different platforms. But the third thing that you should be aware, and I'm sure all of us are aware of this, is that teachers are only a fraction of what you learn.
Right.
You actually learn from your peers, you learn through interactions, you go visit the library. And very often, you see, it's a pat on the back, it's a patient listening to their problems. So there were telephone calls, frantic telephone calls. I thought at the beginning of the lockdown, I was more a counselor than a teacher, because I had to tell them that, look, it's a passing phase. We are going to adapt to it, and we will take cognizance of your difficulties and adjust accordingly. There were also the problems with the final year students. You see, for the BA final sem students, MA final sem students, they were staring at a complete lockdown of admissions to higher courses, or a complete closure of the job market, as Shubhadeep was pointing out. It's this threat that once you step out from the university, you are actually sort of crossing into a kind of an abyss, a kind of a darkness, right? Suddenly, you take away hope from young minds and you enter into a crisis. So these were the kinds of, you can say, crisis that we faced. And then what we started doing was started creating smaller WhatsApp groups. We started creating Gmail groups. We tried to motivate them by sharing certain material with them. We try to talk to them one to one, find out who are the ones getting left out, talk to them over the telephone. So, well, you see, what has happened is, the difficulty has been for students who are either shy or students who are not the greatest performers in the class. Because you, as a teacher, you tend to make eye contact and find out, realize who is understanding what. Now, once you take that away, you see, as a tile, you are just a black box on that Zoom panel. Or even in a WhatsApp call, I can see you only for that much time. So these are the people who actually face difficulties, and we had to do a lot more to reach out to them. So these were the crises. But I think overall, if you look at the scenario in India, the kind of response that has come through is quite fabulous. You see, today we had a Google Meet with our students. 82 of them, all of them came, participated, and I'm very proud of them that they have very quickly adapted to the situations. Proud of my colleagues all across the country. The effort that everybody has put in from all levels of teaching has been quite phenomenal, I would say. Of course, I speak with the awareness that there are areas which are remote, where I have seen people cycling, say, 20 kilometers to reach a place where you actually have internet access. And I salute those people for their desire to learn. There are some people who have dropped off the radar, and it is they who have been hit with the greatest crisis during the pandemic.
Wonderful thoughts, Professor Shen. I must say that, a teacher like you, I'm sure you are connecting with each and every student of life and they're getting benefited. It's not only a teacher-student relationship. At this point in time, the kind of relationship the students are requiring is beyond that teacher-student boundaries. That, that personal touch, that thing that, I care for you. Every student must be wanting and looking for that from their teachers. Thank you so much. My next question, I would actually like to ask it to the lady, Shubhosri. Shubhosri, if I look at you with, looking at your profile, the first thing comes into my mind is that film cannot be made sitting at home, right? So what was your reaction when this whole lockdown thing was declared? When this pandemic came in, and then the lockdown was declared. Then it was probably for 15, 20 days, and then it was further extended, then again extended. So what are those initial thoughts that came into your mind?
Hi, good evening to all of you. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this session today. I'm a filmmaker and I lead the Media Lab at the Indian Institute for Human Settlements, which is an educational institution that works around urban practices. I do not work in the area of mental health. So just to say that whatever my opinion is and whatever I'm going to be expressing is an extremely subjective one. To come to your question, Sharmishta, about what occurred to me. So I wear two hats, right? I'm an independent filmmaker, and I also lead the media lab at IHS. So I actually work with a team of people, and I think the first set of thoughts, I suppose, as my co-panelists have already spoken about in length, so I will not speak about it at a personal level, is just about I don't mean survival as in roti kapda makan, because we all come from a class where we do not have to be worried about that. But because we also come from the class we do, and given how cheap labor in India is, the kind of lives we lead is we're able to afford it because there are people around us who are working in our homes. And with the lockdown happening, the fact that all that was gone, rightfully. And so it was just a thing of every day with people who live in your household to figure what do you eat every day, how do you put the clothes out, and basic things like that. As far as my own professional practice is concerned, both what I do and what we do in the Media Lab requires filming, requires going out, requires editing as well, requires working in a team, speaking to your teammates, and like most other people, that has gone. So, for instance, with me personally, I work a lot in Assam, in the state of Assam. And I was, in fact, due to go for a scheduled shoot in April to film, and that hasn't happened as yet. But I think pretty soon you realize that this is the situation right now. You cannot go shoot, but I think as somebody who works in films and who's generally interested in larger ideas, not just to do with cinema but literature and the arts, I feel this is perhaps the silver lining of COVID, that we've had the time and mind space, at least I've had, I can say that, to read more, to watch films. There are these wonderful films, I feel like, which are part of various film festivals, which you would have never had the opportunity to see, because film festivals again are very exclusive spaces. But starting from this film festival in April called Vision Du Reels, which put their films up online, you have access to many more watching things, right? Apart from the OTT platforms that are there. I think for me personally, even though there's what you call a webinar fatigue that we're all feeling right now, um, I do think what for me has been really nice about this is that you're able to engage and hear people who, again, under normal circumstances, you would not have been able to and listen to, because who has the time and money, more importantly, money, to be able to go to these conferences and seminars and attend? But here, right now, it is open and you're listening to fantastic speakers from all over the world, and I think in that also there lies a potential, a certain I would say opening out and democratization of the world of ideas, which I think was only, or is only, the preserve of a few. But I think people from many more classes, many more cities, not just the metropolitan cities that we come from, perhaps are also able to access these things. So yes, it is a terrible time. And here I'm again coming from a very middle class perspective, right? It has been horrible and continues to be for a very different class of people. But I think for many of us, it has been difficult times. But if you've managed to keep your job and if you have a monthly salary coming in, there's a lot actually also we've been able to do apart from finding oneself personally in a very different way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Actually, it's also lovely to hear that people like you also contribute. And I mean, for many of our viewers, probably they might be thinking that those who are into film industries or associated with films and stuff, they do not have that time or probably inclination towards contributing, into this household works and stuff. But then you are
Really?
doing that, so that's
I don't think
that's wonderful. I'm just,
that is
as a
stereotype.
general public, I'm also putting my thoughts here. So we
Stereotype.
have already started receiving questions. Viewers, I would request you, for you have any questions, any comments about this whole show, or for any questions for our panelists, you can please inbox us. We will take your questions and answer that by in the end of the show. So I would again actually would like to come back to you, Shubhasri, with my, it's a very related question. You have already shared that how this COVID has given you the opportunity to attend many, or for many people, it's not only you, to attend such webinars and discussions, which otherwise could have been difficult probably for many people because of fiscal restrictions or limitations or whatever XYZ reasons. I would also want to understand, creative people have got a different thirst, right? So, the thing was like there is, it may not be for you particularly, but then for your industry, there is definitely a kind of uncertainty where people do not know if there is job in hand, if the job in hand would be there after 2 months down the line if this situation pandemic continues and this whole social distancing thing continues and things like that. Or from a broader perspective, I mean, if I may ask you, there are many people who are like, if they come to their duty, who are associated with your industry, and if they come to their duty, they will get their wages, right? So, and that's a huge number. Is there anything the industry per se is doing or thinking? Is there any union, any committee, anything which is thinking about them for their survival? Because at this point in time, again, we do not know when we are going to go back to normal.
I mean, that's a pretty good question. Thank you for asking. I just also want to make it clear. I mean, I want to break it into two things. So, I come from a non-fiction or documentary film practice, right? Mm-hmm. We are what they call the margins of margins. So, actually, the kind of films we make, there is no funding, there is no distribution, there is no union, there is nothing. So, for us, actually, life is as is. So, I'm not going to address that. I'm saying there are structural problems around how we look at non-fiction films in this country and how it gets circulated, right? But if I may speak of more mainstream industries in which I do not work, and by this I don't mean just the Hindi cinema, but other industries that are there in which I do not work or have a very deep association or knowledge of, but I'm just responding to what I've read in newspapers, so it's a kind of very surface level. Is I think this moment has shown us, whether it's in the film industry or other industries for sure, that how important unions are, right? Because it is true that in the film industry, you get, I mean, unless you're like a really big star, or you're really in one of the top thing, you're a top editor or cinematographer who has the power to work out a good deal for yourself and get paid. Most people who are in the lower rungs of working in a film unit is really massive, actually get paid per day. So whether that's the men and women who are the extras, or people who work on lights, or people who work on sound, or people who are assistants of hair and makeup people, I do not know how much is being done. There was a statement, I mean, so my sense it, and I could be incorrect, and perhaps Mr. Bhattacharya will be in a better place to speak about this than me, that some production houses actually were paying people and were taking care, but and the Producers Guild of India, I think early on, had come out with a statement saying we will be doing XYZ things, but I'm not really sure the extent of that is happening, because see, when the lockdown happened in March, I don't know how many of us, I definitely didn't foresee, perhaps it was my own ostrich in the sand kind of attitude. I thought, 1 or 2 months and then life will go back to normal, and then you realize, no, it's not. It's going to be like this for a long time to come. So I don't know, and especially in a situation where theaters are not opening anytime soon, film shoots are happening few and far between. I don't know what the unions are doing, and should they be doing more, and also don't forget, the larger context is also the whittling of the labor laws that are happening all over the country. We also need to read this against that. I haven't really come up with a quote unquote solution or an answer, but this is my understanding.
But yeah, your thoughts, I'm sure it is reaching to the right kind of audience today, and we will get the answers soon. Thank you so much, Shubhoshri. I would, come back to Professor Shen once again, although you have you said personally how you are reaching out to students to understand their problems and all. There are two things, if you could just throw some light on. Given a country like India, or let's say it's in West Bengal, in any of the remote villages, or a maybe middle class family in the urban area, in a family, how many smartphones do we expect? 1, 2, not more than that probably. But then there are 5 people, and there are siblings in the house. One has to attend classes, school, which are scheduled by her or his school, and one is to attend his or her, your college sessions. So, is there any practical problem which I'm sure you are receiving those practical problems, but is there any systematic approach to deal with those problems? Like, now students can't even go for extra tuitions. So how do you plan, or how the whole education system is planning to address that? If you can throw some light on it.
Right, that's a very good question, really. Thank you, Shomishta. Now, one of the things that we have done, and I absolutely agree with you, is, my students have been calling me saying my brother is attending a school class. His class is class 12. So it's very important that he attends the class. Could you please shift your class a little bit later on, earlier? I've had to take classes at 7 o'clock in the morning, you see, when no school reopens, or say at 7 o'clock in the afternoon. I regularly take a 9 o'clock class right now because the students have said that this is the best hour, that you get the internet access. The areas where you don't even have internet access properly, it's very broken. So you see, what have we actually done to address these issues? We have tried to create multiple strategies. Like, say, we've given them reading material, short reading material, not very huge ones, over email. Now, that's the easiest thing that they could access, maybe. We've tried to create videos for them which they can watch later at their convenience. You see, some of them have reported that they watch these videos at 12 o'clock in the night, because that's when, the geo recharge kicks in and the internet is at its fastest. But yes, these problems remain. And you see, there are people who don't have smartphones. What do you do with them? That is the most significant problem. So, it's interesting in the way in which students themselves have showed themselves up. I know of my students who have played the recordings to people without, you know, uh, smartphones, so that they don't miss out. Those are the shoots of real hope that I see. But yes, as I say, there is a certain fraction, and a large fraction, not just a certain fraction, which has dropped out. That is the greatest pity, because you see, private education technology is available to a certain fraction of the people, but the public institutions are the backbone of the country. If we can't go to class, and you see, it's not just that the teacher is going to class, he's also going to a midday meal, for example, right? Think of a remote village. That meal is equally important as teaching is, and therein lies the problem when the schools close down for a lengthy period of time. Now, I don't have any solutions, as Shubhasri just pointed out. I'm just articulating and trying to cope, right? The government, for example, tried something very interesting. It tried to put lessons on television, which I thought was a very good idea, but then it fizzled out. That's the problem with our system. Radio could have been a very, very significant medium for instruction, right? But, once again, you see, these are thoughts that people are experimenting with. And it appears, unfortunately, that COVID is here to stay for some time. And even after that, if these could be supplementary aspects of teaching, well, we would be happy for that. But for those who have missed out, I really, really have my very, very great sympathies. There's one last category of students which I'd like to talk about. We do not really talk about them much, but they're problems who really have mental health issues. You see, we think of mental health professionals only, but I can tell you instances where I have interacted with people who can't talk to their parents properly, but would come to the teacher. And you see, teachers are like alchemists in certain ways. They transform careers, not only careers, but also mindsets, solve the problems. These are things which we are really losing out on. Earlier we didn't have psychiatrists or psychologists that much. Our grandparents did that. Now teachers play a very important role, now that families are shrinking. So therein lies certain issues which I think is leading to a different kind of a pandemic of anxiety, a pandemic of issues that do not merely deal with curriculum, but with personality, right?
Was coming straight from your, coming out straight from your heart. So My next question, not question exactly, but some experiences, Mr. Bhattacharya, if you could share, like any practical experience, the way Professor Shen was saying that students are coming to him. So, any of your colleague has ever come up with any problem when you had to actually deal with it going beyond your professional roles or we call it KRA. So beyond that, any incident that you remember you would like to share with our viewers and everyone here? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Is it fine now?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we all have gone through these phases with our own teams or with the colleagues or with the peer. Like what Amrit was saying, I totally agree that a lot of times, more than a boss, you have to be a friend at this point of time. Somebody needed to speak to us. For example, one of my team members was stuck in Pune. He was alone. I mean, he stays alone. So his family stays in Jaipur. So he stays alone. And from that day, from March onwards, and Pune, as you know, is a hotspot till now. So there were cases left, right, center. Actually, he broke down. I mean, over the phone, one day he started crying. I mean, I was also taken aback. He's a pretty strong guy. I mean, I've been working with him. Actually, he was crying. I mean, started discussing work, but then it went into different levels altogether. So we had to actually for the next 5-7 days we never discussed any work with him. I actually discussed with him what exercises I am doing, what are the courses which he can enroll online and do few stuffs out there. And then first flight that was opted out of Pune when the flight started operating, we allowed him to go back. We never, because we said that go back, take your time, it is work from home. You did not go to your office now, no problem, because any which way I got a lot of support from my organization, let me tell you this, because n number of initiatives were taken, which is to overcome all this. People were allowed to go back to their homes or to their parents also. And still people are working from home, from their hometown, who are outside. Also, this lunch hour, I mean, the small things, because we never knew what this work from home is. So it was all blurred. The family time, office time, everything was getting blurred. So now they have created a very strong lunch hour, which we have done. So nobody can call each other or make video calls during those lunch hour. Plus this concept of taking leave. So we have this feeling that people who are, once I am back home means what to take a leave on that. As good as a leave, not realizing that we are working till 8:39 at night. So now it has been made compulsory, and I have made it with my team that everybody has to take a leave. Might as well. It is not that sitting back at home means you are on leave. You are working. So whatever leaves have been accumulated, a portion of that has to be taken now. Plus, we have started doing a lot of online activities on Friday evenings, which we are involving families, like your Father's Day, Mother's Day speeches, which earlier we should do in the office. Now the family comes in. So there is a joint, people do painting workshops, people do some activities with clay or something. Tambola is being played. Plus, we have started getting to that rewards and recognition, R&R. We are not waiting for whenever the offices will open. So what people who have done good in one quarter, people are meeting online. It's like a ceremony, but senior most management to the level of CEO is coming and announcing the awards as if we are in a hotel. The way it is being done online. So those are the things which is being done at a personal level from me to my team, or as an organization level. Like we have been provided with wonderful headsets, pretty hi-fi headsets. I know of organization, my neighbor, their company has given them a set of nice office working table and chairs, so that now they can sit back and work back and home, because that is the reality now. So it is that empathy. I think that's the key word now. We have to be. I see few things are beyond my control or anybody's control in this world. The way it is happening, though things are much more stable now. Though numbers are going up, but actually we know that okay, now the sports is happening. Now the shootings are happening and everything. There is a something to this madness which we can at least fathom. So now, but at the same time, empathy is a key word now, which we very clearly we have those coffee sessions, tea sessions where people discuss everything other than work. So those are the things which we are doing on a regular basis to ensure that people do not feel back at home lonely, because you started saying that we cannot go back. Those office gossip sessions in the canteen is something, I know we all miss. We miss a lot. So one should not miss them, and as far as possible to make your home a nice place to work and not make you feel that you are not working.
Yes, yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, and I would totally agree to your comments. Like in my organization as well, I come from an NGO background, so I work with an international NGO. So we are, senior SMT members have started taking initiatives. Our HR team is now coming forward. So we need to actually, this is the time when we should practice more and more, how to become more empathetic towards others and how to become more caring. And rightly, we are practicing that as well, I must say. So, well, which means that it's not only bad. There are brighter sides of probably COVID-19 pandemic as well, which is teaching us new things and new lessons every day. So on this note, actually, I'll come back to you, Professor Shen, although you have already mentioned that what all needs to be done, but if you could just, you know, because you come from that academic background, if you could just a little more elaborate on the fact that, how do we, because we always say that convert your challenges into opportunities. So is it the right time to convert your challenges or our challenges into opportunities? What do we do? How do we stay motivated to convert our challenges into opportunities? You need to unmute yourself, Professor.
I'll answer that question with a small caveat. You see, as Shubhasri rightly pointed out, we are talking from a vantage point. Really, we have our gadgets, we have the ability to reach out in a certain way. So whatever I say is probably going to be based on that perspective. There's a vast portion which I actually don't know about, so I can't talk at length about. Now, the first thing is that we have to change the way in which we think about teaching and learning. You see, our learning is entirely focused towards examinations, and that is why you see this major crisis is happening about the students getting frantic about examinations, right? And today we had a meet where we were asking people to change the way in which questions are put, rather than rote memory. If you could look at crisper, shorter questions which test your analytical skills, that may be change. That if that change comes through, I think that will be the greatest change that COVID would have brought in a positive sense. The second is the way in which we once again teach. The teacher is the center, and all around students merely listen. Now we are being forced to actually ask them to present, right? So even for us, you see, it's now becoming, you have, I can see the clock ticking away at the right hand bottom of the screen. So I have to focus. I have to clearly organize myself. That's the second point. And thirdly, you see, what happens is, and I think Shubhasri is right there, there's a democratization. You see, all with this webinar things, lectures, people are coming through, cooperating with each other. Say, for example, my university is cooperating with another university, and I can bring somebody else. There's been a democratization. There's been certain things which have happening. Publishing houses, for example, have opened their books so that people can study. That's a very important thing to happen. For example, when we teach Shakespeare, the Royal Shakespeare Company has actually come out and put the theaters online to be watched. Now that's a resource that we would not have even dreamt about at a certain point of time. So, and students, you see, they are young minds. They are also, let us give them some credit. They are also motivating themselves in certain ways also, right? Accessing things, exchanging ideas. I think what we need to do is we need to tell them that whatever happens, there will be a new dawn, and in that dawn we will come out stronger than this. And if this brings about a change in the way we teach, in the way we approach subjects, then I think we have transformed what is a major crisis into a reasonable opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. With this, probably I would ask a question to Shubhosri. If you look at this whole film industry, there is a wave, right? So at one point in time, it was all about love stories. Then there was a wave of covering issues around uh, border issues. Then there came a point in time when we see a lot of movies around women empowerment, social issues, etc. So with this COVID thing ongoing, and once it is hopefully gone very soon, would there be any shift in the narrative?
Um, I mean, definitely there are going to be many more documentary films made on COVID. And I'm not, yeah, it is what it is. Again, I can't say that for sure. Yes, because I think so much of cinema, I think whether fiction or non-fiction, both, um, is many things, right? It's about your own interiority and how you experience the world. It's also the world that you see outside. For instance, the next film I'm working on, which is looking at identity documents in the current moment in Assam, actually. COVID was never part of the narrative, but in some ways, not in a very obvious way, it becomes a background, right? So yes, there will be many more films made on COVID, whether it's fiction, non-fiction. But I also really do hope um, that it doesn't just remain about COVID, because I do feel that um, we've always, whether it's in writing or cinema, we've always been creating different kinds of narratives. And this is a certain moment in history, right? Because I don't think anyone in our generation, anyone alive, perhaps has seen anything like this. Perhaps the Holocaust or the Second World War may have been that moment, but I wasn't there. So I really feel like before we all start making films, and there's a way I feel like in the social media world we live in today, something happens now, and the next second there's an opinion, and by the fifth second, that's it, end of it. I just feel like I think we need to absorb it, experience it, and let's see what kind of narratives come. And I also just want to add that um, something that Professor Sen was saying, just adding to that, this thing of hope that just an anecdote, right? There is the psychiatrist, this person called Viktor Frankl. Maybe you're all familiar with him. He wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning, where he was a Holocaust survivor. He was in the Auschwitz camp. He lost everyone in his family. And the only thing I think that kept him going was the hope to be reunited with his wife someday. So the reason I'm saying this, I think, should be made essential reading for everyone now is, I think we live in an era of instant gratification and what I call the happiness industry. Every second person you ask, what do you want to be? I want to be happy. What does that even mean? Happiness is an emotion like anything else. But I think this may be the time for all of us to also just revisit and reflect and look at, in whatever it is you do, whether you teach or you're in a corporate thing or you're a doctor or you're a filmmaker, what is the meaning of the lives we lead? And I feel like if we're able to reflect that, then our art, literature, cinema, everything will reflect that as well. And do read that book. I would just recommend to everybody. Right? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we would have to take the questions, but before that, probably one last question to Mr. Bhattacharya, and probably the last question of today's session, and then we'll go and take on the questions that's coming in from the viewers. In hindsight, I mean, again, the silver lining, do you see any positivity or any, I mean, going forward, we'll have a more improved work-life balance, a better family relationship, family as in going beyond your close-knitted family boundaries as well, or a healthy, more caring societal, relationship? Anything as such? Do you really
Yeah, rightly
envisage
what you
that?
said, Shubhasri, that Shubhasri was saying about looking at the positives and looking at the meaning of happiness. I think that is something. I mean, let me talk about the positives which has come out of this Every crisis gives rise to some opportunity. It has to happen. It has to. We should face that. So look at so many people have lost their jobs. It's not a good thing. It's a crisis. But what I can see in and around me is that a lot of those people are not sitting back and lamenting them. They are actually getting into entrepreneurship, which is a very, very good sign for the country all around us. If you see the rural, the way they are bouncing back, if the 100 unit had gone down to 75 during the COVID, from a pre-COVID 100 to 75, both urban and rural has nearly reached 98 by end of July or middle of August. And they are bouncing back, and how, and which is a paradigm shift which we all wanted in the corporate sector, that this entire power game should be shifting from all urban to rural also, which is happening now. So now, even if you look at from a ecological point of view, from an environment point of view, I see a few positives, because certain jobs we have all realized now will now be permanently work from home. Earlier, that taboo of you have to come to the office is gone. You can work from home. So which ultimately would mean that less number of people on the ground, hence your ecology, your environment is taken care of. Also, the people going on a regular basis, there will be rostering. It is not that all 10 people who are required will be going to the office on one single day, at least in the near future also, which also will ensure that there is an element of nice work-life balance, because you're traveling time in a city like Bombay or a city like Bangalore or even Delhi or even Calcutta, any city per se, any metro city, the amount of time that is consumed to travel, it takes care of all the qualities of the finer aspects of life once you are back or once you have to leave. So these are the things which I see as a nice and positive things coming out. You're becoming health conscious. The small things like washing hands and all those stuff, these have been taught to us since beginning. At least the new generation, I could see. I mean, I can see my son. Earlier, I had to tell him 10 times a day. Now I have to tell him 3 to 4 times a day, which is an improvement from earlier days to nowadays, to wash his hands, which is a small thing, but yeah, that's a positive thing. And last but not the least, from a very personal point of view, I have started enjoying the small little things of life. I never thought on a weekday that seeing a setting sun with my family and having a cup of tea from the balcony would give me so much of a pleasure. Or seeing the rain coming, and we have a vast open place in front of the house, and you can see the rain actually ushering in. So the small thing, and capturing a video of that, we never thought about that. So life, the happiness of life is not going out and going for a movie or eating outside. Is not only that, it is also there. I'm not saying that is there. But for me, the biggest silver lining as a person is to be happy in those small things of life, and which is the biggest realization. And that is why I should thank you and we organizers for creating this forum of where you say mind matters. Actually, mind matters. It's all in the mind. Few things are there which are beyond our control. We say that 80-20 formula. 80% of the things, now it is 90%, which is beyond our control, which we only can control is the balance 10-20%. So let us focus and see the positives of life.
Thank you so much. And I would just like to add one thing from the environment perspective as well. Like, if work from home continues and there is a roster that is maintained going forward as well, I think it would be beneficial, and we will be contributing those 2 cents towards saving our environment as well. Well, thank you so much, all the panelists. We will now take on some questions that I have already received. And I would really request you to be very brief while answering them, because we have a hard stop at 9 o'clock. So one question we have received from Mr. Ayush Bhattacharya, which is to Mr. Shubhadev Bhattacharya. He wants to know that as a top corporate official, do you feel that the emphasis on management in reference to mental health has increased during such, times? Also, would you if you could just shed some light on the specific strategies you have adopted? You have already answered some of it during your discussion, but
I think it's a good question, but portion I have already addressed it. That what are the small things what we are doing on a day-to-day basis, and we are learning also whatever we are doing. But yeah, man management has become extremely crucial and important, because earlier you used to meet that person on a face to face. So a lot of times, if you are a bit harsh to him, also all the discussion never went in the right direction. There was always a cup of coffee which was there, and he could just go to his room or his workstation, or sit in the canteen, or in the evening sit for a drink after the work hours, and you can iron it out. But it is not like that. If the call over the phone or the video over the now currently, then that guy is going back to his place in his own cocoon now, with that thing in his mind. So you have to be very very careful. You actually have to be. So the man management piece, if earlier on a scale of 1 to 10, if whatever it was, it has doubled or maybe tripled also. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is for Professor Shin, where Lokesh Kumbe wants to understand, know it from you. At times of COVID, where self-learning is the new norm for students, how can we ensure that they are perceiving the cognitive aspects of online learning efficiently?
Right. I have a very short answer to that. Is that, it's this way of reaching out. The first thing is to see who are the ones who are participating. The second is to reach out to the ones who have not been able to participate. And the third thing that we've been doing very, very often is that we're holding open house sessions, where we are trying to take them through using certain technologies, right? And we are discussing ways, and assigning teams. You see, students work very well on teams, so we arrange so that person X helps somebody out, person Y, and then of course there's this element where we ask them to call us if necessary. Now, in our case, we've seen our department reach out to people. For example, you see, 6 classes a week, a day, for certain people is impossible because data charges are too high. So people have reached out with data. Jadavpur University has, for example, moved to give smartphones to people who have not got smartphones. We are planning the same. I think we're trying, as Shubhadeep pointed out, we're trying to cope.
So, one similar question to this one for you, Professor Shin. How can the teacher reach all students in this pandemic situation if any student doesn't have Android mobile? You have answered, but then for Partho Pratim shortcut, if you could
Yeah,
just
once
answer.
again, the same thing. You see, we've asked people to play out the recordings. Uh, we've tried, but you see, once again, I make this point that there is a percentage of the population which is falling through this gap, and that gap has been created. Now, I don't have ways right now, but I would once again say that the radio could have been a possible low cost solution to this problem. Unfortunately, we have just used the radio as a mode of entertainment. We should do better. But for that, we need greater governmental intervention, really.
Thank you, thank you. So we have another question for Shubhosri. Shayoni Chakraborty wants to know that how to sketch a character with psychological dilemmas people are facing now. What will be the essentials that should be kept in mind while framing them?
I I feel like I'm this person on the panel who just keeps saying, I don't know. Um, how do you sketch a character keeping the psychological dilemmas? It depends on whether you're making a fiction or non-fiction film, but I would say a maxim for any genre film you're making is a research, read a lot around whatever you're making on. If you're making a fiction film, think about the milieu the person you're going to set the person in, and try and understand the milieu more, read more, do more research. But I'm not really answering Charoni's question. I don't know the answer to that, because the reason I'm saying I don't know the answer to that is because there's no one standard answer for this. It depends on what you want to make, how you want to create that world. So if you would like Once you know the story you want to tell and you need more help, I'm happy to help you out. But in a very generic way, I don't know what to say.
Can I just add to that a little bit?
Yeah,
I
sure.
have this anecdote to share because the last time a pandemic happened was the flu of 1919, you remember. And you see, after that, in 1922, you have two great novels and poems published, uh, two of the great masterpieces of modernism. One was The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, which again talks about this crisis and death. And the other is James Joyce's Ulysses,
Ulysses, yeah.
right, where Leopold Bloom comes and is the outsider who's trying to once
Yeah.
again cope,
Yeah.
the modern Ulysses, as it were. I'm sure some form of representation will come through.
I could not agree with you more. And which is why I was saying a little earlier, perhaps we should, I'm sorry, I mean, I finished answering. Perhaps we should all just not be in such a hurry to say, something is happening right now, let me do it. We're not journalists. If you're a journalist, you must do that. Take the time to understand what's happening because it actually isn't over yet. And then you may just create something brilliant. Or not, but you'll create something.
Thank you so much. So we have got another question from Shayoni. It's a pretty serious question. Do you think government should conduct shows frequently on the television, radio, etc., about the mental health counseling? As the statistics is indicating that domestic violence is increasing strikingly. So would you like to take that, Shubhosri?
If the government should have programs on television that addresses domestic violence, um, yes, absolutely. But I don't think this is just about. Of course, we must have communication programs that address this, whether it's on television or other forms. But I think there's a structural problem here, right? Domestic violence is not just. It has increased much more in the pandemic because you're in a physical enclosed space, and and perhaps more cases of violence are being reported. But it's also a larger structural problem, not just in India, but all over the world, uh, um, where certain gender equations play out. So I think, along with communication materials that are being put out and all the communication campaigns that are there, I think we need to actually think about how we've structured a society, the place men, women, people who do not people who identify themselves as both men and women, who are outside the gender norms. We need to think about how do we bring everybody into a conversation and relook at how patriarchy itself has been organized. Domestic violence is one end of the problem, but there are many others in that spectrum, I think.
Thank you, thank you. So Mr. Lokesh Kambe has asked another question. So this one is for Mr. Bhattacharya. So, what is the future of OTT platforms once pandemic subsides? Will the growth of subscribers thrive or fall once we return to normal?
You're talking about OTT?
OTT platform,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I think this is another big silver lining for our industry. So OTT was growing, but what happened is that because of lack of live programming and the movie theaters being closed, so this actually has exploded now, and which has opened up another hub for the all the broadcasters who create their softwares or for the filmmakers also. Shivashree will agree that this is a new opportunity for all of us, and this is here to stay. So it is not that linear TV will go, but yes, OTT will stay and OTT will grow, and the pace of growth that will happen, or if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, and in the current scenario, it will be many a fold more, and OTT is here to stay, and how it will.
So I think that's an end to the questions that we have received from our viewers. So it's 9 o'clock already. With this, we have almost come to an end of our today's session. And thank you all the panelists. It was an absolute pleasure to have this discussion with you all. I'm sure that your positivity has traveled many miles today and influenced many minds for good. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Thank you, DHEECast, for creating a space to have a conversation around such an important and timely topic. Thank you, viewers. Thanks to all of all of you who have contributed in terms of raising your questions and all. Keep supporting the cast like this and subscribe the channel, and do follow us on Facebook as well to remain updated about many such important and interesting sessions. Lastly, please maintain social distancing, put a mask on your face to stay safe from COVID-19. Take care. Good night. Bye.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you all.
Good
Thank you, Shobhishta. Bye, Amrit. Bye, Shubhu.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Everybody.
Bye, everyone.